So today we're going to cover streamlining the mortgage process and how we can help you get to the finish line faster to make your offer not only more competitive, but less stressful. You're watching this video because you are in a very competitive market, and that's every market in the United States right now. It's extremely competitive because inventory is down and buyers are still up there looking for houses, and people aren't selling their houses because they've got killer rates on their interest rates, and they're seeing, hey, the longer I hold this house, the house is going to be worth more and more and more. So you may be in a situation where you're relocating because of work or military or family or just upsizing, downsizing, retiring, whatever it may be, or upgrading your home, right? And you're having a hard time getting an offer accepted. When you talk to other lenders, they're giving you different timelines. Yes, we're in a slower market, but you got to understand that the timelines that a lender gives you is only going to be as good as like both parties meeting all the obligations that are needed to get the loan approved. So we're going to show you how to get all of that kind of streamlined. And then finally, how to gather your documents and what documents to gather up front so that we could get you closed in as little as 17 days or less. So number one, we want to have the mortgage application in, okay? When you have that mortgage application link from your loan officer, whether they're taking all the information online, which I highly recommend you fill out an application because you're inputting your own information. Whereas in the olden days, we would gather all the information over the phone. However, when we're gathering all the information, even when you play like, the whole telephone game where you're relaying a message from one person to the other, by the time it gets to the end of the line, the message is totally messed up. Not saying that this is going to happen, but there's that chance. And when that chance happens, it could lead to another credit pull, or maybe there was a number that was misinputted. So applying online, number one, is really crucial and really important. Then we're going to submit your documents. Okay, when we're submitting your documents, we want to make sure that we have your income. So if you're not self-employed and you work for a company or just a W-2 employee, we're gonna need 2 months of pay stubs, 2 years of W-2s. We may need tax returns if you're gonna write things off and whatnot. If you're self-employed, we need 2 years of your tax returns with all schedules. Make sure when you're providing the schedules, you're only providing the federal schedules. State schedules should not be needed. When you go through the process, make sure you set a timeline with your loan officer. Hey, when is the follow-up time? So when you apply for a loan with me, in my application link, halfway through, I'm gonna have a scheduling link that says, hey, this is the follow-up time that we're gonna talk again so that we have everything kind of lined up. You wanna have a follow-up with your loan officer to understand all the terms, what type of loan it's gonna be, the monthly payment, all the obligations, so that we make sure that you're fully pre-approved through this process. Having that face-to-face meeting is really important too, or having that conversation, not just emails going back and forth, because when you ask one question, that question may not be able to be answered until we ask the follow-up questions that can help you with this. Then we're going to set up a timeline for the closing. So we're going to blueprint this all out for you. You get the contract accepted, immediately we got to get the home inspection. Are we going to order the appraisal right away, or are we going to wait for the home inspection to come back before we order an appraisal? If we wait until it comes back and then you renegotiate like terms and like repairs and things like that, then a 20-day timeline or 17-day timeline is probably not attainable, because most appraisals, if they're not ordered with rushes and they cannot be done on government loans, can take up to 14 days. And in certain markets, it can take up even longer, such as like Alaska, where they have to come in via seaplane or anything like that. So just make sure you have everything kind of mapped out. Make sure the title is ordered with a rush, because if there's any delays in title because of liens or anything like that, we can kind of go through and get everything kind of sorted out. We're going to have internal milestones that we set for ourselves, right? If we know that we have to get this closing done in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever the timeline is, we're going to have different milestones. Like, hey, if we're going to do this fast, the application, as soon as that contract comes in, has to go out right away. We have to choose a company that's going to do it fast, so we're not having a 2-day delay between the application going out or the contract coming in and the application going out. We're going to set expectations for our processors and everyone else on the team to make sure that we can close with a 1-touch or 2-touch closing. And what that means is when you provide all the documents to us, if we can get everything that's going to be on that automated underwriting finding, and that's what's really important when you're working with a lender, is to make sure you're working with a lender that doesn't have a lot of overlays. With a lot of overlays, you're going to be jumping through additional hoops that you may not know about. So make sure when you talk to your loan officer, when you're choosing one, what are the overlays? Are y'all just following VA, FHA, conventional USDA guidelines, or are they going to be overlays that you guys have internally? So one good question to ask them is, hey, if I'm getting a VA loan, what's the maximum debt to income ratio I can go to? You can watch a lot of videos on this. But typically you can go up to a 76%, but most of the more conventional traditional lenders are going to max you out at 50 or 55% debt to income ratio. We're not telling you to do that, just telling you that, hey, you should ask that questions to see if they really do or do not have overlays. Make sure you have a personal loan officer that's dedicated to your loan application or one of their loan partners dedicated to it, so that you can get updates and get your questions answered, because no one likes waiting. I don't like waiting. You don't like waiting. We send you an email, we ask you for documents, we want to get a response saying, hey, at least I received the email, or I'm going to take like 2 or 3 days to get this to you. That way we know what the process is, so we can let everyone in line. And when we say in line, the processors, the underwriters, the closers kind of know, hey, this is the timeline that we're working with. So we're not pulling someone else off of a loan that's not going to make the timeline when someone else could be closing on that date or that time. Make sure when we're asking you for documents and the requirements for the documents, yes, you can question it. You know, sometimes when we see a document, it's going to open up another can of worms. So primary example is like a bank statement, right? We get a bank statement. When we're looking at the bank statement, guess what? In that bank statement, it may show that, hey, there's a lot of large deposits in there, or it may show withdrawals going out to the same person month after month. And we're going to start questioning things like that. So make sure you're going through all that stuff before you start applying. And then finally, you know, there's no guarantees, but providing an estimated closing date with your loan officer and looking at their reviews is, you know, something that I would definitely do. With that being said, you know, typical loan companies out there, they have their own timelines. Not going to say that everyone can do this, but when you're working with, like, you know, some of the top wholesale companies out there that are out there wanting to gain our business, when we set these timelines with them, and that's why it's really important to work with a wholesale mortgage lender, okay, or a mortgage broker. Because we are working wholesale, we're going directly to the investor ourselves. When you work with a bank or retail lender, you're borrowing their money. You're going straight to them, but what that means is that you're paying all those middle level management fees. You're paying for all these other things like, you know, their advertising, the beautiful buildings and things like that you wouldn't have to pay when you go wholesale. So these wholesale lenders are asking for our business, and because they're asking for our business, like, they're trying to do everything they can to make sure that they get, you know, our timelines met. If you're getting a government loan, as I mentioned a little earlier, like your VA or your FHA loans, the shorter timelines are pretty unreasonable if you're not willing to do that in appraisal right away. So just know that there's additional criteria. So when it's really busy, the VA appraiser is gonna take their full 14 days to get it back to us. You know, sometimes their communication's not the strongest. Not saying that all of the appraisers are gonna be like that, but let's just say the appraisal is going to come in short, even if it's $100 or $1,000 short. You know, they can exercise this thing called the Tidewater clause, where they're asking for additional comparables to support the value of the home. Or there may be some repair delays or anything else like that. So the number of 17 days is definitely a target that we try to hit, and we will be able to hit those the majority of the time, but you have to work with your loan officer when you're trying to do this. Speed matters, closing fast matters, and sometimes it can be the difference between you winning the contract and not getting the contract. So if your loan officer cannot pull this off for you, or you'd like to consult with me so that I can answer any questions or concerns that you may have, I'd love to help you out. My name is David Zai with the Zai Mortgage Team. I can be reached at 757-478-8493. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, as we really appreciate everything that you guys do for us, and we are out.